Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth.
The first thing is, how did these people came to Japan in the first place? What do they give to the society? What advantage do we have to have them in my country? Tell me about it. What benefit? What do you give? Pay little tax? Don't care. Now, what do we need? We need to deport those third worlders who is living in Japan right now. It's good that the problem is not coming in. We have to get the problem out of my country. Now, what is she about to say? Tell me, where is she from? Republic of Nigeria. Oh ho ho.
Carry tribalism for head. But the world is turning against us. The world is turning against us.
Ah.
A country that is filled with intelligent people. Now animals they rule now. The world is turning against us. A country that is all over the world. If you see those who are carrying vests, you see those who are doing great things.
Stop. Hey. Animals ruling them? What? Who the f*** is speaking like that? Ruling now. Really? Calm the f*** down, bitch.
The foundational black community has been the most welcoming and accommodating group of people, particularly to the diaspora. And the reason why is we know what's out there if we don't stick up for people. There is no substitute for the legitimacy that we bring, and these other groups, they know that too. For generations, foundational black Americans have tried to come to Africa and to help build it up. We didn't seek to colonize them or to rule them. We were trying to build with them. That was the goal. We kept at that effort for over a century. So, if we were in the trenches on that one for over 100 years, what went wrong? Well, what went wrong was the Africans from the rank-and-file citizens to their highest governmental officials insulted us, disrespected us, and did everything they could to put barriers between us. Meanwhile, we watched while they rolled out the carpet for literally every group of non-black foreigners from around the world, especially from Asia. So their former colonial masters, they were making nice with them. The Arabs, they allowed them to get a foothold. And the people from Asia, they allowed that too. And this has been the result. This taught these foreigners that the Africans liked being mistreated, and worse, they would even reward you for it. Now, it's understandable if the Africans are feeling some kind of way because they're getting blocked from these Asian countries, but the sad fact is, the Africans are still allowing the Asians to freely enter Africa and not putting any restrictions on them. When are the Africans going to put in place reciprocal policies? When are they going to be saying, hey, if you're singling out Nigerians, then the Nigerians and every other African country will prohibit the Japanese from coming there? And, of course, they'll go ahead and double down on it, requiring enormous proof of income before they allow Japanese to even get a visa. But they won't because they can't. They literally cannot afford to. And people like this guy, they know it. One of the many sayings I've developed over the years is that if you want someone to like you, then just go ahead and say yes to them. Say yes to everyone and they'll pretend to like you because you're a doormat. But if you want to be respected, then you better start learning to say no. However, that only happens if you have self-respect and if you're not dependent on other people. When you have an entire culture of fleeing and then making up stories about one's failures and deficiencies and being puffed up with false pride and phony confidence, everyone can see it. It doesn't fool anyone. Notice that this Japanese man points out that the Japanese are not fooled by the phony claims that so-and-so from Lagos is bringing valuable skills or that their presence is building up Japan.
What do they give to the society? What advantage do we have to have them in my country? Tell me about it.
These talking points may be allowed in the U.S. because immigration is used as a political and demographic counterlever against foundational black Americans, but that paradigm only goes in the U.S. In the East, it doesn't fly at all. Now, before I go any farther, I don't have any illusions about this guy. He is a typical Asian racist. Full stop. That's what this guy is. He can pretend to himself that if he doesn't use racial slurs, that means that he's better than that, but he's not. You can just smell it on him. So let's not kid ourselves about that one. But understand, the only reason he's sitting here talking trash like this is precisely because he's talking about his home country. He's admitted that he's a hypocrite, that he lived in Spain.
I came back to Japan as a Japanese. I used to live in Spain or Malaysia in total 8 years. From teenage years. Like I sacrificed my whole life for the country so that next generation will live good life here. Learn that shit. Learn that shit.
So he too was trying to find opportunities elsewhere, but then he claims that he returned to Japan so that he could make opportunities for future generations. Well, looking at Japan's plummeting birth rate, there may not be a next generation. Also, something else this guy conveniently forgets is that Japan wasn't colonized by the West, and also after World War II, the U.S. instituted the MacArthur Plan, which rebuilt Japan, putting untold hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars into rebuilding Japan as a bulwark against the rising power of communist China. Japan's rapid redevelopment in the post-World War II period was not simply a matter of Japanese staying there and rebuilding home. First of all, the Japanese had made themselves largely undesirable over most of the world. From the bloodletting that they carried out all over Asia and the Pacific to the killings of white American, British, and Australian soldiers and prisoners of war. The Japanese couldn't exactly show their faces outside of the home islands. So that's the first reason the Japanese had to stay in Japan after the war. But secondly, they stayed because the U.S. was footing the bill to rebuild their country. Development is a hell of a lot easier when somebody else is paying for it. Now, those weren't the only factors at play, but like a lot of these non-black people, our big-mouth bigot here conveniently forgets what really happened. Tries to turn into a story of, oh, we rebuilt Japan and did it all by ourselves. He conveniently forgets about all the huge amounts of money that the United States gave to his country, but then again, he's not alone. The Nigerian government has also received huge amounts of money from the United States over the decades. What's happened to any of it? Nobody knows. But when people look at the corrupt presidents of Nigeria and the guys at the very top, it's not hard to figure out where at least most of that money went off to. The Nigerians, however, abroad did a similar thing. They didn't just forget how they came to be in the U.S., they also decided they didn't have to learn how in the first place. The purpose of this morning's briefing is to re-emphasize what's been happening in the United States isn't stopping there. The U.S. sets the tone for the world. And that's the reason why you got a lot of these other countries who are looking and going, oh, well, if the U.S. says it's okay to go in on these people, well, we'll go ahead and do that too. And it doesn't pay to hide one's head in the sand about that fact. This is something we've been warning about for decades. But we still have a lot of foreign flags out there who are trying to put forward the pathetic talking point that, oh, sooner or later they're going to start rounding up you FBAs, or, well, these people in these foreign countries, they don't like you FBAs either. First of all, we have never had any illusions about the fork-tongued, two-faced way that the world considers us. Everybody loves to copy what we do, everybody loves to emulate what we do, but at the same time, they also have been hideously disrespectful towards us as well. But we need to understand something. When you look at these foreign countries that are slamming their doors to countries like Nigeria, and you look at the way the foundational black Americans are regarded in those lands, we actually have a good reputation, and not just merely in comparison. We're not the ones that they refer to as quote-unquote third worlders, or immigrants looking to sneak in and live off the state. When you hear about neo-Nazis and other assorted trash in places like, say, Scandinavia going off about immigrants, who are they usually talking about? They're usually talking about Somalians, Ethiopians, and Nigerians, usually in that order. Now, they claim that they're talking about Muslims in general, but they never mention Saudis or any other group of Arabs whenever they give their little racial diatribes. Whenever they get specific about who it is, it's always some group from Africa. So clearly, Muslim is just a code word for African. Because in all of these other countries, they have understood that there are black people from Africa, but there's also black people from the United States too. There's a long story behind that I'm not going to get into here, but these people, they are aware that there is a distinction. When you see some English-speaking black person who is not of our lineage, but they made it good in some other place, in most cases, they were born in the U.S. or lived here for a significant period of time. In other words, they get to cloak themselves in our identity because that's who they're associated with. As long as they don't have a strong African or Caribbean accent, that's what they do. They decide, hey, these guys, they're lumped in with us. Even the people who are not from our lineage have to pass through the U.S. to get the benefit of our reputations. Being FBA is like a traveler's check. It's accepted all over the world. I say this not to put anyone down, but to explain the hard realities of why this is happening. It didn't have to, but unfortunately, this is what people chose to happen. And this is why delineation is feared by so many of these tethers. The same way that they've benefited from white power forcing a flat definition of blackness onto the black population here and making it where we have to carry the weight for every foreigner who commits a crime, they're concerned that delineation will make it where people elsewhere will begin getting specific about exactly who it is they're shaking their fists at. The Nigerians are very upset about the fact that their movements are being curtailed not just in Japan but also in other countries. There are a huge list of countries that basically have banned the Nigerians altogether. Now, obviously, I'm not rooting for any of that to be happening. What I'm pointing out is this has been the reality all along, and we've been trying to warn people about that, but they told themselves that apparently they were on the team. They had a bunch of delusions, but reality always gets the last word. Now, that's what's going on. What could be done about this, at least at the individual level? Well, first of all, I think that the Nigerians who are in Japan or other places, they should tell the Japanese how hardworking they are. Tell the Japanese how educated they are. Because I couldn't help but notice that since the ICE raids started and these countries began withdrawing the welcome mat, none of these immigrants has been talking about their education or their hard work. They dropped that talking point, almost as if they pretty much figure that's not going to do them any good. It begs the question, though, why did they ever say that stuff at all? This Japanese man here is showing exactly what they think of those claims. He was saying that the Nigerians are all drug dealers.
One of my friends, who is from America, was about to get dragged into suspicious bar by force, just like that. And also, it's very obvious that they sell drug on the street, so oh, okay, those Nigerian that is like selling drug on the street was basically came to Japan for free. Okay, now they were shutting that down. Great. Okay, Takaichi. Okay. Look, if you're thinking like that, if you think that you're intelligent, then do not go to other country. There's one Nigerian guy told me that UK is second home for Nigerians. If you think you're intelligent, stay in Africa and build your country by yourself. Don't go to another country, bring your mess. The reason why you think that world is turning against Nigerians, because Nigerians flee from their country and doing mess in another countries, in another people's country. Don't lie to me that you want to learn Japanese. No, you want safe life, abandoning your country.
Any alleged education or so-called work ethic meant nothing to him, and as they see it, the Japanese work harder than anyone. So if somebody comes in there, especially somebody from a country that's lesser developed, and says we work hard, the first thing the Japanese are going to say is, can't tell by looking. And understand something. This guy is not some 60-year-old boomer. He's not even in his 40s. This guy is in his 30s. And look at the attitude that this guy is showing. Look what it is that he's saying that he thinks about them. But also notice something else. This guy also says that the Nigerians have their own country, one that they own and control, and why aren't they building it up?
When I was in Spain, there was a black man from Senegal. They came to Spain with a rubber boat from Africa. And I asked them, why do you abandon your country? Why do you want to develop your country? And I said, well, not everybody has a good opportunity like you. Yeah, obviously, all of you guys, all of you people abandon your country and flee to other country. Only think about yourself. Of course, your country will be shithole. If you're a real man, then stay in your country and develop your country. I mean, if your people's lazy and you guys are selfish, then your country is gonna be super shit, a third world country forever, and you're gonna suffer. That's what you deserve. I'm sorry.
See, this is what the tethers and the foreign flags and the professional fleers will never understand. If you want to be arrogant and talk about how you're a cut above everyone else, then you gotta earn the right to talk trash. Or you can take a page from the FBA handbook, let the vibrancy and dynamism of your work speak for itself, as everyone tries to copy and imitate it. Even if they begrudge it, they still have to come to terms with it because that which you cannot defeat or resist, you have no choice but to accept. Not accept it happily, but you gotta accept it nonetheless. I, for one, would love to see an empowered Africa. That has never changed and is not going to. That was the entire goal that so many of us worked for a century to try to bring about. The problem was we were the only ones who actually wanted it. The Africans wanted to flee from black control. They never overcame their cultural and societal dysfunctions and insecurities. They need to understand power comes from within. You're not going to flee from home and find power. When you see people who are on television or on the internet saying, well, there's no opportunities for me back in Africa, the Japanese and others, they interpret that as meaning they don't want to have to do the work of fighting the forces of corruption back home. Because that's ultimately what it comes down to. Why is it that the place isn't being built up? Well, it's the government. Okay, well, if you don't fight the government, you can just wait until a group of foreigners come in and they got enough numbers and enough resources where they topple the government and run you out altogether. And then where are you going to flee to? Because that's the mental arithmetic that these other groups, especially the ones who are streaming into Africa, like to subscribe to. If you're not willing to fight a group of ragtag kleptocrats in your home country, then you certainly won't be fighting the more developed foreigners who are going to be coming in, trying to take Africa right out from under them. All they've done is to export opportunists and to import defeatism. So we're seeing the ugly death of that whole we work hard talking point. But my question is, where's all of that immigrant solidarity that we were told so much about? Why don't we see any of these immigrants sticking up for the Nigerians or any of the other Africans or Caribbean people who are being deported? You don't see any of them doing that. Because these are the same people who here in the United States, well, we're all immigrants, they say, at least amongst themselves. Oh, they try to put forward that whole thing about, well, all of us immigrants, we got to stick together, but they can't stick together here. And abroad, ain't no solidarity. They don't recognize that, oh, the Nigerians, they're immigrants just like our folk in the United States or what have you. As far as they're concerned, nah, ain't no immigrant solidarity, ain't no cross-immigrant anything. Exactly the kind of cold shoulder that foundational Black Americans warned was out there, but you had some folks who thought that they were being clever. What they thought was that they were going to be putting together basically an axis of opportunists and that they would close ranks against us. How did that work out? Malcolm X said that Black people could not think of uniting with anyone else unless we first relearned how to unite with one another. That we couldn't think of being acceptable to others until we first relearned how to be acceptable to one another. All the condescension and disrespect was just empty boasting and bragging, and it never fooled anyone. The Africans who fled felt insecure about fleeing. They saw everyone else building up their home countries while they were running away from theirs, and they knew that was the elephant in the room whenever they went to these other places. And for decades, they've repeated the mantra of, we work harder than so-and-so, and that they've got a superior culture. And the thing is, for a little while, it seemed as if these host countries were going along with it, but of course they weren't. It was all a game, it was all a political strategy, and now that they feel to themselves that they no longer need these guys as some sort of demographic counter lever or for whatever political purposes they had, now they're going ahead and showing their true colors. But foundational Black Americans knew the game from the start. We had no illusions about what was going on and why. The white supremacists are amused when they see this self-serving bragging by these tethers. After all, the white supremacists love a cruel prank, especially one that takes a long time to pay off, and this prank has been decades in the making. To these foreign flags, they simply can't understand how these white supremacists pulled the rug out from under them so quickly. To them, it doesn't make sense. They actually thought that they were on the Team White Supremacy. We warned them that they had been playing with fire, and that all of these illusions about how they were being so embraced by these other countries was nothing more than a daydream. And now a lot of people are getting the wake-up call from hell. Those who fail the test of being honest with themselves about their circumstances also tend to fail the longevity test too. You can play a game with yourself if you want, but that's a game you're going to lose. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: Rowan Wings, Deborah Cooper, Vernon Travis, Antonio Daniels, and Otis Pimpleton. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.